Lord, my deepest apologies.
No, it's okay.
Mr. Kanyangela, I was saying to you that your affidavit of the 26th of November starts at page 90.
That's correct.
Now, yesterday, you'll recall, I pointed out a number of omissions and additions, respectively, in the two affidavits. Your affidavit of the 23rd as compared to the affidavit of the 26th. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember.
Okay. Now, we've dealt with it, and I don't want to go into those details for the moment. But can I ask you, you might recall yesterday His Lordship asked me, but whom were the warrants in respect of? This is the warrant of the 23rd of November 2019. Do you recall His Lordship asking me that? Okay, it's not relevant. It's on the record, Mr. Kanyangela. I'm just trying to orientate why I'm asking the question. And my answer to His Lordship was that the names of the persons appear on your affidavit of the 23rd of November. And can I then ask you, please, to look at page 66 of your affidavit.
Yes.
And I gave him the 6 names there.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you look at your affidavit of the 26th of November, those are the 6 names that appear there as well. Am I right? And that's in particular if you look at pages 90 to 91.
This is the same people.
The same 6 people.
Yes.
Is that right? That for whom you had applied for warrants on the 23rd, or whom you indicated you were applying for warrants. You remember that?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I just want to, and it's because of the question His Lordship asked that I looked at this matter again. And I want you to compare paragraph 17 of your affidavit, which appears at page 66 of your affidavit of the 23rd, with paragraph 3 of your affidavit of the 23rd of November. Now, I want you to look at this. At page 59, you name Mr. Esau.
Yes.
You say, so let me just put it in context. You say, in Namibia, the allegations have a bearing on the following persons and beneficiaries. The first one you name is Mr. Esau, is that right?
That's correct.
And then if you look at page 60, the next one is Mr. Hatukulipi.
That's correct.
James. And then the third one is Mr. Tamsin Hatukulipi. That's right?
Correct.
Then the fourth one is Mr. Gustavo.
That's correct.
And then the fifth one is Mr. Shangalala.
That's correct.
Now you'll see there's only 5 names of people from Namibia there.
That's correct.
Okay. I want you to please look at page 66, paragraph 17. You've now applied for a warrant, and we've been through the gap, and you said there was a mistake, that this was part of another affidavit. But I just want to point out that in this warrant, without mentioning that there were allegations against Mr. Ueitele, you applied for his arrest.
Even his name is not appearing in the affidavit. I put his name on as a result of his companies that have been involved.
No. I'm asking you. No, sorry. Okay, you want to explain. Yes. No, I understand. The point I'm making, though, is that there is nothing on the affidavit which suggests that a warrant of arrest for Mr. Ueitele was justified on the affidavit itself. Is that correct?
It is not correct.
Sorry?
I will say it is not correct.
Okay, where do you mention him in the affidavit? Are you still
I have
looking?
mentioned him on paragraph 12.
Paragraph 12. Yes. But you don't say in paragraph 12 that he is involved, as you do in paragraph 2, that these are the persons who are beneficiaries.
Yeah, but I mentioned him.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let me just tell you why I asked the question. Because I now want you to look at page 91. And in addition to the 5 persons you mentioned in paragraph 3 of your affidavit of the 23rd, you've now added Mr. Ueitele. If you look at page 91, paragraph 3. The last bullet point of 3.1.
Yes.
I'm saying I'm going to suggest to you that you realized when you were doing your affidavit of the 26th that you hadn't put his name there, and you now put his name. Is that not correct?
It is not correct. These affidavits were made on different occasions. And they were made specifically for a purpose of getting the warrant of arrest. The mentioning of names, to me, I can name the name anywhere in my statement.
Yes.
As I want to, when I want to put it. And I says, if there was any requirement that was lacking from this statement that I submitted to the Office of the Prosecutor General or to the, that reached until the Office of the Magistrate, I believe if there was anything wrong with it, then they could not issue the warrant of arrest.
Okay.
Because these statements were made to put the prosecutor and the magistrate in the picture of what is being investigated. And hence, they issued the warrant of arrest. But although the person was not listed, he had been mentioned.
Okay. Sorry, you said something earlier that I find very interesting. You say that if there was something wrong with the warrant, they would not have issued the warrant.
No, I say with,
with your statement. But wasn't there something wrong with the statement? That's why.
With the first statement, yes. That
Yes.
one I said there was something wrong with the
And
statement.
that's precisely the point I'm making, that on the 26th you realized there was something wrong with your statement of the 23rd. That's why you put Mr. Imwatulelo's name as the last name in paragraph 3.
It's my role to put him everywhere. I want to
Sorry?
put him in my statement.
It's
I can
you?
put him everywhere in my
Okay,
statement.
all right. That's your answer.
Yes.
Okay. See, I'll tell you why this is significant. You said yesterday that you discussed the affidavit with Advocate van der Merwe. You remember?
My affidavit. Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes.
Now, I asked you what you had discussed with her, and you said no, not the affidavit itself. Is that correct?
I said not the affidavit of Mr. Esau. That is what I have said.
Okay, so what did you discuss with her?
It's the content of my affidavit.
Which affidavit?
The one of the 26th.
Okay. Now, I've pointed out the differences between the affidavit of the 26th and the 23rd yesterday, you remember.
Yes, I remember.
Are those the matters that you and Advocate van der Merwe discussed?
Yes, I have said. I was not compelled to put what was in my previous affidavit in my affidavit of the 26th. It is my decision to decide what should I put in this affidavit. But I was not compelled.
No, Mr. Kanyangela, I understand that. You do what you want from what you say. It's quite clear. But that's another point. I've asked, did you discuss the contents of the or what was problematic about the affidavit of the 23rd? Because remember, the the High Court found that the warrant was invalid. You remember that?
Yes.
Based on what Mr. Esau said, and we've been through that yesterday.
Yes. We have been
Right.
through that.
Now I'm asking you, did you and Advocate van der Merwe discuss what is it that needs to be fixed up about your affidavit of the 23rd? Yes or no?
The possibility could be there that we have discussed about it.
No. Okay. So as you stand there, you cannot remember now. You just say it's possible.
Yes, I say it could be possible.
All right. So as you stand there, you cannot say you and Mrs. van der Merwe or you and Advocate van der Merwe discussed your affidavit or what was lacking in your affidavit of the 23rd.
I could not recall of having discussing it, but the possibility could be there that we might have discussed it.
See, yesterday you were quite emphatic you hadn't. And I'm saying to you, Mr. Kanyangela, that It is clear when one looks at things as they unfold from your evidence that there were other people that were involved in the decision to make the arrests and in how to secure the arrests.
I could not rule that out.
Now, that's a very interesting answer. You say you cannot rule that out. Why do you say that?
The matter of arrest, actually, if the case is being discussed at the office, the matter of arrest is also arising.
So okay, and now, Mr. Kanyangela, I understand. I'm not asking about the possibilities anymore. I'm saying in this particular case. So let's not say that it could have been discussed. We want to know in this case, was it or was it not discussed?
The arrest was discussed.
All right. By whom?
By us, investigators and the advocate.
This is Mrs. van der Merwe.
Yes.
So this is before the arrest, before the application for the first warrant. This is the warrant of the 23rd of November now.
We normally discuss for any action that we would like to take. So their first arrest could also have been discussed.
No. I'm asking a slightly different question. I'm asking, was it discussed? We know it could have been discussed. Anything could have happened. My question is, was it discussed?
Yes, it was discussed.
Why are you so reluctant to tell His Lordship what the facts are in this case, Mr. Kanyangela? Is there something you are trying to conceal from His Lordship?
No. I don't want to conceal anything.
You see, Mr. Kanyangela, yesterday when I asked you, I accepted at face value what you had said. And then I looked at my notes and I looked at the documents again, and I thought it doesn't make sense. Now I've probed it with you, and we've been at it for about 20 minutes now. And now for the first time you say, not that it could have been discussed, but it in fact was discussed. Now, doesn't that sound disingenuous in the sense that you are not trying, or you are not telling the whole truth? You are holding back the truth until it is extracted from you. Isn't that the position?
No, it's not the position.
Okay, can I ask you, do you think there is anything wrong if you and the other investigators discussed the arrest with Advocate van der Merwe?
There is nothing wrong.
That's what I would have thought. There is nothing wrong with that. Now, let me ask you, when did you first discuss the arrest with Advocate van der Merwe?
I can't give the exact date, but it was before the first arrest.
So it's before the 23rd.
That's correct.
How many days before? I know you say you can't give, about how many days before? Or how many weeks or months before?
Well, possible 2 days before. As I say, I cannot read eggs.
Okay. So
when?
Okay. How many meetings did you have? And I know there may have been other people, and we'll deal with that in a moment. But how many meetings did you have with Advocate van der Merwe in relation to the arrest of the accused or the seeking of a warrant in respect of the accused in this matter?
Not more than 5 meetings.
So there were 5 meetings relating to the arrest.
I said not more than that.
Yeah, sorry, you're quite right. So 2, 3, whatever it is, but not more than 5.
Yes.
And the first meeting, you say, took place perhaps 2 days before the application for the warrant.
Yes.
All right. This is the first warrant now, am I right?
That's correct.
Now, when did the next meeting take place?
The next meeting, it could be on the 25th, when I start drafting this affidavit for the 26th.
Okay. So can I just ask you this? On your version then, in relation to the application for the warrant, there was only one meeting before your affidavit of the 23rd of November? Or
Yes.
were there other meetings as well?
With regarding to the application of the warrant of arrest.
Now remember, there were 2 applications, so let's just distinguish between the 2. In relation to the application for the first warrant, how many meetings were there?
I said there was only one meeting.
Okay. Then you said there could have been, well, there was no more than 5. Now you were telling us about the meeting, the next meeting, and you say that was about the 25th.
The meetings I'm referring to is the meeting in which we sit related to the application of the warrant of arrest. Those are the 2 meetings I'm referring to.
Yes. Now, before you applied for the first warrant, you discussed the matter with Advocate van der Merwe. Who else was with you?
Normally, who used to be there is Mr. Klute and Mr. Olivier.
So as you stand there, you can't remember, you're
Because
just saying
we used
normally.
to sit, we were the main investigators, and whatever we are discussing, they are always present. So they were there.
So I'm asking now, and I think it is important, so I'm going to press this. You see, sometimes you say that we normally do this, therefore they must have been present. And sometimes you say, not only must they have been present, I remember because at this meeting, Mr. X said Y, Mr. Z said whatever, Mr. Z said A. Now, can you independently recall whether Mr. Olivier and Mr. Klute were at the first meeting to discuss the warrant of the 23rd?
They were present.
That you remember independently?
Yes.
And, of course, Advocate van der Merwe was there. Was there anybody else that you can remember?
You can only remember those 3.
Okay. There was nobody else outside the ACC. I mean, there was nobody from political parties and so on.
No, there was nobody else.
Now, what was the purpose of the meeting? To seek her approval to secure the warrants?
Like I said, He's a legal person at the institution. And we used to seek advice from him.
Sorry, to seek what?
Advice
About what?
with regarding to our functions as a commission.
Was it the advice whether you can arrest these persons or not? Or you should seek a warrant for their arrest or not?
Yes, those were some of the issues that we raised up with her.
Okay. So, one was to say, we, the investigators, think we must arrest the following people.
Our approach to her, she was to advise
What
whether
advice?
we need to apply for the warrant of arrest of these people or to arrest these people without warrants. That is the advice we went to seek for her.
Okay. So, so the issue of your powers in terms of Section 28, you remember I raised that with you yesterday, sir?
Yes, correct.
Now, when I asked you about Section 28, and you recall, I read to you what the provisions of Section 28 are, and I said, but you didn't use that.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now, that's one of the issues that you thought about before applying for the warrant.
That's correct.
Okay. And who took the decision that you should apply for a warrant rather than arrest?
It is the advocate.
Now, I take it one of the matters that would have concerned you was the fact that among the 6 people whom you wished to be arrested were 2 former ministers.
There was nothing prevent us from arresting the 2 former ministers without a warrant.
Sorry, there was nothing?
That preventing us from arresting the 2 ministers.
Yes.
Without a warrant.
No, I'm asking a different question. And that's why you approached them, because you had the power to do it. I'm saying you had the power, and the question is whether or not you should exercise that power. Was that one of the questions that you raised with Advocate van der Merwe?
Yeah, but not because of the 2 ministers.
But that was one of the factors.
The fact was whether we have to apply for the search warrant or we can arrest without warrants. I mean the warrant of arrest, or we can arrest without warrant of arrest.
When was the decision taken that you'd apply for a warrant rather than exercise your powers in terms of Section 28?
It was during the meeting that I just indicated that it was before the application of the first warrant of arrests.
And she said use a warrant, not the your powers under Section 28.
That's correct.
And that's what you did.
Yes, that is what you did.
Right. Now, yesterday, you remember, I asked, one of the issues that Mr. Esso raised was the following. That you didn't have the power in terms of Section 43 of the Criminal Procedure Act. You remember that?
That's correct.
And you yesterday said you accepted that that is so.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's just, and I mean, you were genuine then that you don't have the power. That's right.
That's correct.
But the warrant had been set aside. You had discussed with Advocate van der Merwe that we shouldn't use our powers, we should rather use Section 43. Is that right?
Our suggestion was that we should use Section 28, which is our powers. But it was turned down. This person is our supervisor. And we could not turn down the instruction that she's giving. That is how it ended up applying for this warrant of arrest.
Can I just ask you again, now you're revealing more as we go on, and that's not a bad thing, because in a sense that is what the purposes of, one of the purposes of cross-examination is to extract the truth. Now, can I ask you this? You were saying that your view was that you should exercise your powers in terms of Section 28. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And she turned it down.
That's correct.
She gave a reason?
She gave a reason to say that she thinks by going that way, it's a proper thing to do.
Because these, at least two of the accused were former ministers.
I cannot confirm that.
But you can't deny it either.
I don't know whether that was her reason or not. I can't confirm nor deny it.
But that's what you suspected, isn't it?
No, I did not suspect that.
All right. Now, the court, Mr. Esso says you're not entitled to use Section 34, Section 43. When you discussed the decision of the court with Advocate van der Merwe, whether it was on the 25th, I think you said it was on the 25th, was part of the discussion, should we not now exercise our powers in terms of Section 28?
No, we did not discuss about it.
Because that issue had been closed.
We just followed the same procedure of applying the warrant of arrest. So we did not discuss the issue of the 28 anymore.
See, there is one difference though, Mr. Kanyangela. Mr. Esau had said that you are not entitled to apply for a warrant in terms of Section 43 of the Criminal Procedure Act. You remember that?
That's
We've
correct.
been through that yesterday.
That's correct.
Right. Now, you yesterday said that you accepted that.
That's correct.
Right. But in effect, Mr. Kanyangela, that's exactly what happened in regard to the application for the warrant of the application on the 26th for the warrant. Save for one thing, you do not say in your affidavit that I am applying for the warrant. And I'll just show you the differences. So if you look at page page 66, paragraph 17. That's your affidavit of the 23rd of November. You say, I therefore apply in terms of section 43.
Yes.
See that?
Yes, I see.
Okay. And now you say that after Mr. Esso had made that allegation that you don't have the power, you submitted an affidavit. And the other essential difference in this affidavit is you don't make that that averment that I apply in terms of section 43. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay. And that's because you thought you could not apply for a warrant. You said that yesterday in terms of section 43.
That's correct.
And so what you did then is you relied on what is contained in, if you look at page 102 onwards, the application that was now made by the prosecutor. Because the prosecutor signs that, he says, application is hereby made for the use of a warrant, and the first one is in respect of Mr. Essa.
That's correct.
I just want to put to you, just given your evidence yesterday, isn't that a cynical abuse of power?
I don't see it as an abuse of power, because what I did, I wrote my affidavit, I give it to the prosecutor to read through it, and for him, if he's convinced, to apply for the warrant of arrest under the Criminal Procedure Act, under that section.
So effectively, the same procedure, absent the allegation in paragraph 17 of the affidavit of the 23rd.
That's why I've said, I'm not compelled to put in what was in the affidavit of the 23rd. It is my decision to put what I think I can put in such affidavit, like I put it in the affidavit of the 26th.
Yeah. You know, Mr. Kanyangela, the beauty about the exercise of statutory powers is this, that at the end of the day, the courts oversee the exercise of that powers, and they step in when those powers are not used for the correct purposes, when they extend beyond what the statute provides for, and when it is done in a cynical manner. And I'm suggesting to you that given what you are now saying, if you had said that to the magistrate would not have issued this. If you had said to the magistrate what you had said to his lordship yesterday, that I knew I don't have the power, the magistrate would not have granted it. I'm putting that to you.
Yeah, that could only fit in the first application of the warrant.
Yes.
But on the second application, I don't see any that I have abused my power.
Okay. And I'm just saying to you that anybody looking at this objectively, dispassionately, looking at the two and your explanation, will know that what you have effectively done is abused your power in terms of Section 43, or abused the powers given to the prosecutor in terms of 43 by making the prosecutor the applicant rather than yourself.
I did not abuse any power.
Okay. Can I ask you to please look at something else? If you look at page 102, please. That's the warrant that was given in respect of Mr. Esso, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, that warrant, as I've pointed out to you, was, that application, because it says application under Section 43, was signed by the public prosecutor, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Now, was that one of the matters that was discussed with Mrs. van der Merwe, Advocate van der Merwe, on the 25th of November? That it would be the prosecutor who would apply, not you.
That's correct.
So she too, I would submit to his lordship, is guilty of an abuse of power. But that's a different point.
Some of these things are effective. It can be argued.
My Lord, I've got no difficulty. I just wanted, if the witness wants to comment, because I am commenting on him, and I don't want it afterwards to be said to by my learned friend, but you didn't put that to the witness. And my learned friend is right. But my duty, my Lord, is when I accuse a person of doing something wrong, when being less than candid with the court, then, my Lord, in terms of the SAFU decision of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, my Lord, which has been adopted in South Africa, I have a duty to put everything to the witness so he can respond to it. It's just in fairness to the witness. But I take the point my learned friend is making, my Lord. Now, can I just ask you in relation to this? If you look at page 103, these are the charges, or this document says that charges in respect of Mr. Esso, and it lists 3 sets of charges, the first set being under A, contravention of Section 43, read with Section 46 of the Anti-Corruption Act, then B, contravention of Sections 4 and 6 of POCA, and C, committing fraud. Have I correctly captured what is set out in page 103?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who drew this up, this document?
I really don't know who drew it up.
But it was attached to the warrant. It was attached to the application. Because what has been put up here is the application for the warrant. These are all the documents that were uplifted from the court file in relation to the application for the warrant.
But I do not know who drew up the charges.
Okay. Okay, so can I ask you a slightly different question? Is this the first time you're seeing this document?
It's not the first time.
You've seen this document before.
I came to see it in the copy of the charge sheet that we made just after the appearance of the accused people.
So you saw this document here.
On the charge sheet, yes.
This is when they appeared in the magistrate's court.
After the appearance, when we are in the magistrate court. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't know who drew up this document?
No, I don't know, because after I make an affidavit, it was either Mr. Kulote or Mr. Oliphir who took it to the office of the prosecutor for the issuance of the warrant of arrest.
So just what's the relevance of Mr. Klute and Mr. Olivier taking you to the prosecutor's office?
They did not take me to the office.
Yes.
They took my statement.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, they took your statement to the prosecutor's office.
that's correct.
So these, when the application for the warrant was made, you hadn't seen these.
No,
And you say you saw them for the first time after the accused had been charged and had appeared in the magistrate's court.
let me just do my recollection. My Lord, I just want to retract what I said before, that I saw it for the first time after the appearance. But I can recall that the first time I saw it, it was the date when they were being charged by Commissioner Becker at the National Police Headquarters. I saw them, I think they were attached to the warrant of arrest.
So for each accused, and we'll just go through that very quickly, for each accused, there was a different charge sheet in respect of Mr. Esau, a charge sheet or document outlining the charges for Mr. Esau that appears at page 103, and for Mr. Shangalala it appears at page 105. Just have a look, please, sir.
Yes,
And then
they were
for,
attached to the warrant of arrest for each accused.
and that I just want us to confirm that all of them were there. If you look at page 108 for Mr. Gustavo,
Yes,
and then page 110 for Mr. Imwatelulo,
yes,
and page 112 for Mr. Tamsin Hatukulipi.
that's correct.
Okay. So you say you saw them when they were charged by Mr. Becker.
That's correct.
What was Mr. Becker's role in this?
He was tasked to obtain their warning statement or to charge them formally for court, directed by the Inspector General, because of the two ministers that were involved.
So now it's the fact that ministers were involved, which is of importance. It's not discussed on the 23rd. It's not discussed 2 days before the 23rd. It's not discussed on the 25th, but it's discussed after it's taken into account after they are arrested.
It's a police procedure that high-ranking people would either be charged by people of the same rank or by any other commissioned officers. You could not expect a constable to go and charge a minister. That's why Mr. Beckel was roped in to come in and charge them.
And you say he was roped in by the Inspector General.
He was tasked by the Inspector General.
When was that?
I cannot give the exact date, but what I know is that he was tasked by the Inspector General.
You were present when he was tasked?
I was not present when he was tasked.
So how do you know he was tasked by the Inspector General?
I came to know that if we get the warrant of arrest, they must be taken to him because he is tasked to charge the accused persons.
Who told you that?
It was either it could be the advocate, Van der Merwe.
No, I'm not asking you who could have told you. Mr. Kluter, Mr. Olivier could have told you. We know that's within the realm of possibilities. This, Mr. Kanyangela, and I want to put to you again, and I'm going to say to His Lordship at the end, that you have been a most uncooperative witness. You have sought to continue refusing or omitting to place all the relevant facts before His Lordship.
These are things that happened a long time ago. And some of the things a person could not really remember to say as to when or as to who. That's why I put it in that ways.
Yes. And that's why you keep saying it could have, it may be, and so on. That's been many of your answers.
Yes.
Yes. Now, let me say why I'm going to suggest that is unlikely to be correct in this case. How many ministers or how many arrests of ministers have you been involved in?
Only in this case, where the two ministers are involved.
So when one is determining whether a person ought to remember or you can accept that he may have forgotten, one of the things that one takes into account is the unusual nature of the occasion. So I'm suggesting to you that in your entire career, you are for the first time involved in the arrest of persons who were just ministers and had resigned. That was the position with regard to Mr. Esau and Mr. Shangalala. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
Now, I am saying that given that, this would be vividly ingrained in your memory and you will remember it ordinarily. And so When you say, I cannot remember, I'm going to suggest to you, and I want your comment on it, that that's unlikely to be correct. You are again being evasive, I'm suggesting to you.
I'm not evasive.
So let's just look at now, you were told that Mr. Becker must be the person to be involved in this. Now, two things that are of importance in this. You had drawn up the affidavit on the, and I'm not saying in support of, on the basis of which the warrant of the 27th of November was secured. Is that correct?
For the 26th.
Was the warrant issued? Sorry, it's the 26th. You had drawn up that affidavit, is that right?
That's correct.
You had made the decision that they should be arrested. Together with Advocate van der Merwe, or do you want to change that now?
No, I don't change it.
Okay.
I still stick to that testimony.
And I asked you whether the discussion was about the fact that they were ministers, and you said no.
Yes.
We have these powers. But suddenly now you are told, but listen, man, it's not you who can charge him. It must be Commissioner Becker who must charge him.
NCC doesn't have power to charge. That's why they were charged by the police.
But you were told that in this case, because it's ministers, it must be Mr. Becker who must be involved.
Because he's a high-ranking official in the police.
No, the question is, you were told this.
Yes.
Right. Now, again, I'm going to ask you, who told you this?
I cannot recall who told me.
But whoever told you, you accepted that was correct, that is the procedure that must be followed.
Yes, I accepted it.
Is that how you exercise your powers? Somebody says, no, you can't do this, Mr. X must do it, or it mustn't be an ordinary policeman, it must be a Mr. Becker, and you just do that.
We are not executing power under the Criminal Procedure Act.
You've told us that, Mr. Kanyangela. I accept that. You, as the ACC, you have the power to arrest, but you don't have the power to charge.
Is correct?
Yes. The police do.
Yes.
The question here is not whether it's the police or not. The question here is why it had to be Mr. Becker. That is the question.
I cannot answer that question.
But you were told that it
Yes.
has to be Mr. Becker.
Yes.
When certainly Mr. Shangalala and Mr. Hatukulupi were arrested on the 27th, I think it was, they were brought to a room in which you were with Mr. Becker. Isn't that correct?
When they were charged, yes.
Yes. You were with Mr. Becker.
That's correct.
Right. Now, how long were you with Mr. Becker before they were brought in?
Not more than an hour.
Before they were brought in?
It's less than an hour, yes.
So you and Mr. Becker would have talked about the fact that he was going to charge them?
We did not discuss about it. That is the one who is going to charge them.
Sorry?
We did not discuss that he is the one who have to charge them. because he was already tasked.
No, I understand. You and Mr. Baker know each other.
We know each other, we work together.
Yes. In fact, Mr. Baker was the one who started this investigation, the investigations that have led to this trial. Isn't that so?
That's correct.
He, in fact, left, as I understand it, left the ACC in about July 2019. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Now, as I understand your evidence in other matters, and you must tell me if I'm wrong, your evidence is this investigation was prompted by the appointment of Mr. Hatukulipi as the chairperson of Fishco, of the board of Fishco, in 2014. That was your evidence, or am I wrong?
Yeah, and a complaint came in during that year
No.
with regarding to his appointment.
Is your answer yes?
But the other investigation came only to start after Mr. Johannes Stephenson came to give his statement,
Yes.
which is the year 2019.
Okay. So, and Mr. Kanyangela, it would be helpful if you listen to the question, because that is exactly what I was coming to. So let me start again. The investigation was prompted by that appointment. Yes or no?
Yes,
And now you say, and I'm not disputing that the investigation proper started in May 2019.
that's correct for one reason.
Sorry?
If you allow me to explain.
No, I'm only asking you questions. When you want to explain, your counsel will give you the opportunity. I am simply asking you questions because I want to go through a sequence. Is it your evidence that the investigation started in May 2019?
That's correct.
Now, at that time, you were not involved with the investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Baker was involved.
That's correct.
He was heading the investigation,
Yes,
together with Mr. Kluter and Mr. Olivia.
that's correct.
Right. Mr. Baker left in July 2009, left the ACC in July 2019. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's when you took over.
That's correct.
And you retained the persons with whom Mr. Baker was conducting the investigations, in particular Mr. Olivia and Mr. Kluter.
That's correct.
Right. So I understand it, and I remember you read this, you said this somewhere. Before he left, Mr. Baker prepared a report for you.
Yes, there was a report he prepared.
Right. And that is the basis on which you continued the investigations.
That's correct.
Right. Did you take over in about July 2019, the investigations from Mr. Baker?
I took over, yes, July, yes,
July 2019.
before he left.
No. Did you take over in July 2019?
That's correct.
When Mr. Baker handed you that report, you and he must have discussed the case.
Yes, we have discussed the case with him and with Mr. Oliphant and with Mr. Kulute.
When you say we, who else? So you've named 3 other people, including yourself. Who else? Is it the 4 of you?
When he was explaining this case to me, it was only him, Mr. Oliphant, Mr. Kulute, and me.
And before the arrest or before the application for the warrant, did you and Mr. Baker talk about the case? I'm not saying immediately prior, but from the time he handed over to you to the time that the application for the warrant was made. Did you and Mr. Baker ever discuss the case?
I did not discuss the case with him, but I attended meeting which he was also attending.
Which had something to do with the case or unrelated to the case?
It's related to the case.
How many such meetings were there?
I can recall there was a meeting that we attended at the police national headquarters.
And who else was present?
I know the Inspector General was present.
Mr. Baker and you, and who else?
I know our current ED was also present at that meeting.
The current DG.
ED, Executive Director of the Anti-Corruption Commission,
Who is that?
Mr. Tilva Shilongo.
Yes. Anybody else?
The Director General could also be present at that meeting. Yeah, he was also present.
That's Mr. Noah.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's all people I could recall.
About when did that meeting take place? It would be after July, but before the 23rd of or the 27th of November 2009.
Yeah, it was between that period.
About when?
But I cannot give the exact date or month when that meeting
You have
was.
minutes of those meetings?
No, I don't have.
All right. What was the purpose of the meeting?
We were just discussing about these allegations or about this case and how it needs to be handled.
Are there other cases where meetings with, for example, the Inspector General were held, where discussions had to be had as to how the matter should be handled?
I could not recall any other case.
Because
apart from
there are
this one.
none, Mr. Kanyangela.
Come again?
I say because there are none. I'm suggesting to you.
That is the only one I know.
Yes. Was the discussion about the high profile of the persons whom you or your investigation alleged were involved?
Can you just repeat the
I say,
question?
was part of the discussion at that meeting the question of these persons being high profile?
Yes.
And whilst some were more high profile than the others, we know that at that time, Mr. Esso and Mr. Shangalala were still ministers. Is that correct?
Yes, they were still ministers.
And was the question of should we arrest them or not discussed?
No, there was no such.
Definitely not. This happened a long time ago. Is it possible?
There was no question of whether we have to arrest them or not.
Whether you should investigate them or not, was that discussed?
The purpose of this meeting was always around the investigation to be conducted.
Yes. And the question I'm asking is, should the investigations continue?
Yes.
And I take it the answer was yes, it should continue.
Yes, the investigation have to continue.
But that was the decision. I mean, the purpose of the meeting was to discuss exactly that. But let's get to between that meeting and the 26th or the 27th, when the accused when Mr. Shangalala and Mr. Hatukulipi were brought to you and Mr. Baker. Had you met Mr. Baker?
No, I did not meet him.
Had you had any discussions with him over the phone or by email or whatever?
I did not.
Okay, so between that meeting that you've talked about now and the 27th of November, you and Mr. Baker hadn't seen each other.
I cannot recall of meeting him because the person who was always coming to our office or whom we are always having contact with, it was Detective Inspector Serone, the one who was heading the anti-money laundering unit.
Yes.
Yes.
But my question is slightly different. My question is, did you have any meetings with Mr. Baker?
I did not have any meeting with him.
So you now meet him for the first time since that meeting to discuss the investigations. Surely you and he must have discussed the investigations that were going on and the fact that the accused were going to be brought to be charged before him.
I did not discuss with him about that.
Are you serious, Mr. Kanyangela? Are you serious?
I saw from that meeting
Sorry?
that was held at headquarters.
At
I did
police
not-
headquarters?
Yes.
Yes.
From there, I did not have any meeting with him.
No. I'm saying at that meeting, did you not discuss these issues? The fact that these are high-profile people, that's why you're involved. I've been told that it is you who must charge them. We can't let an ordinary, as you put it, an ordinary constable charge them.
The issue of the charging, it was not discussed at that meeting that I'm referring to.
Not even raised.
No.
You didn't ask him who had taken that decision? That it is he who should charge them?
I did not ask him who took the decision.
Oh. It's clear you do not want to be forthcoming. Can I just ask you, Mr. Kanyangela, will you look at X46? That's the letter from the Inspector General. Beg your pardon.
X or Z?
I beg your pardon. Z. Yes. I beg your pardon. Z46. Now, Inspector Becker's name is not there, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, I say that because on the 14th of October 2019, Mr. Becker had already left the ACC and he was with NAMPOL, or the Namibian police. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. But his name doesn't appear here.
No, it's not appearing.
Okay. Now, at that meeting, on that occasion, when the accused were charged, were all the accused charged by Mr. Becker?
That's correct.
And you were present at the charging of those accused?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I just need to ask you a question. Remember yesterday, I was saying to you, you had the power in terms of Section 21(4) of the Anti-Corruption Act to ask the accused questions and so on. Remember that?
Yes.
Look, it's quite a powerful weapon in the hands of the ACC, is it not?
That's correct.
Okay. It was not used for the purposes of this investigation against, the powers in terms of Section 21(4) was not used against any of the accused for the purposes of this investigation. Is that correct?
Yes, it was not used.
Was that issue ever discussed, that it should not be used?
No, it was not discussed.
Who took the decision that it should not be used?
Because it could not be used simply because there were already warrant of arrest applied. And when these people were being charged, they were advised by their lawyers not to give any statement or not to say anything. Hence, we could also not approach them in terms of that section.
Yes.
Because they were already informed or advised not to give any statement.
So I'm talking about before the warrants, before the application for the warrant, during the investigations. That's what Section 21(4) is about. It is to assist your investigations, it's to ensure that state resources are properly used, an accused is put on terms, and the protection is there, that if he says anything incriminating, it can't be used against him. That's what I'm asking about. Not after the warrants, because the horse has bolted by then. Who took the decision that the powers in terms of Section 21 must not be used?
There was no decision taken.
You just simply didn't exercise the powers.
There was no decision taken.
I'm asking a different question, Mr. Kanyangela.
Yes, we did not just use that powers.
Did you discuss that among yourselves?
No, we did not discuss about it.
Isn't it rather strange that you have such a powerful weapon and you don't use it?
Yeah, we did not use it.
Now the question is why?
We did not use it because there was a difficulty of tracing these people. Some of the accused, like Mr. Shangala, Mr. James, we were told they were out of the country. Before we did apply even for their warrant of arrest. Hence, we could not summon them. Under Section 21.
So sorry, have you finished?
Yeah, I'm finished.
When were Mr. Shangalala and Mr. Hatukulipi out of the country?
They were out of the country prior to the arrest.
The question is when? Is that during a week or so before they were arrested?
I could not give the exact period, but such information is on the case file.
But did you try at any stage, when I say you, the ACC, at any stage after the investigations proper began in in May 2019, did anybody from the ACC try to summon the accused?
I'm not aware of any summon issued to them.
So is your answer yes, you didn't try?
I did not try.
And the question I'm asking is why? You've told us that they were out, and I'm saying to you that was for a particular period. You had a period of about 5 months in which you could have used your powers, which would have made which would have short-circuited the investigations, and which would have given the accused an opportunity to present their versions to the ACC. Are you having difficulty with answering that question, Mr. Shangal?
I just don't know how to answer it.
Just speak the truth, it helps.
I have already indicated that I did not exercise that Section 21. during just the period you mentioned. And we could still be opportunity all time to use that section. To summon them and give explanations on the allegation. But such opportunity could not be implemented following this issue of applying for the warrant of arrest against these people. Hence I say, I could not give a possible reason as to why such section was not utilized.
Okay. But we know as a fact it was not utilized, right?
Yes.
And we know as a fact that it's a powerful weapon in the hands of the ACC. Well, let me not call it a weapon. It's a powerful tool in the hands of the ACC.
Yes.
But you deliberately chose not to use it.
Yes.
Okay. See, I've got to say to you that in the absence of a proper explanation as to why it was not used in this case, one must assume that there was an improper motive.
I'm not aware of such improper motive.
You won't tell us what that improper motive is. Isn't that the position?
There was no any motive
Let me
for this
just
section not to be.
not to use it. Let me just ask you, it is a power you usually use, right? The powers in terms of section 41. Sorry,
Yes.
21. Yes. So I'm just going to conclude this part. Just one final thing. The application for the warrant for Mr. Esau's arrest was made on the 23rd of November. Is that right? The first application.
That's correct.
That's a Saturday, isn't it?
Unless I have to confirm.
I can tell you it was a Saturday. I checked it, Mr.
Okay.
Kanyangela. Isn't it unusual? You don't want to answer that question.
I don't see it as unusual.
Do you usually apply for warrants on
If it is arranged
arranged with whom?
with the prosecutor and the magistrate.
You see, Mr. Mr. Kanyangele, you are investigating now. The ACC is investigating from May 2019. You take over in July 2019.
Yes?
You wait throughout. You don't use your powers in terms of Section 21. And you wait for a Saturday to apply for a warrant. Does that not all sound strange?
To me, it is not strange.
Is that how you normally operate?
Sometimes.
How many warrants have you sought on a Saturday?
Even 2 weeks back, we went to apply one.
Now, I say how many?
I'm aware of 2 occasions.
Yes. See, I'm going to close this part of my cross-examination, Mr. Kanyangela, by saying to you that all the facts relating to a number of matters. One is the exercise by the ACC of its powers, the non-exercise of the ACC of powers or tools that it has in terms of Section 21. The decision to apply for a warrant on a Saturday, and then to continue with a process that you knew was wrong if the ACC applied for it, all suggests that this whole enterprise was taken by people other than yourselves. You and other members of the ACC appear to have been carrying out instructions. Would you say to that?
I partly agree to that.
Sorry?
I partly agree to that.
And you're going to tell us whom you were taking instructions from?
With regard? With regard?
No, see, my question was you were taking instructions, and you say I partly agree with that. Now, the question I'm asking is, are you going to tell us from whom you were taking instructions in regard to the entire investigation in this matter?
Instructions. The person who mostly involved in the investigation is Advocate van der Merwe.
See, my question, you might remember the one you answered. I said the ACC, so I was including her as part of that. And I understood you to say you agree that the ACC was taking instructions from somebody else. Are you changing your answer in regard to that now?
I'm not aware of any other instructions that was coming up outside the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Okay. But certainly what we know is it was not you who was controlling these matters, it was Advocate van der Merwe.
I was in charge with the investigation.
Yes.
I was the one who was allocating tasks to the other members. But there were also some instructions that were coming from the advocate.
Yes. Lord, I'm going to go on to a new topic Can we have a 5 or 10 minute comfort break, please, my lord?
10 minutes.
I know we're near lunchtime.
It's
It's
okay.
been a long morning.
Yeah. 10 minutes.
As my lord, please.
Got the rice.